Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm doing something different. I'm bringing some men on the show. Traditionally, it's usually women who are rocking it in the driver's seat for their career, but it occurs to me, being a diversity and inclusion strategist, that it's important to diversify the learnings that we provide on this show. So I will be featuring an all-star cast of gentlemen that are doing their thing. And I'm so pleased to introduce to you today my good friend, Kenneth Johnson, who is the diversity recruitment leader. Kenneth, I think that's your tagline, and you can correct me in a minute, but just welcoming you to the show. Is a career expert. He does his own show and is just an amazing person. Kenneth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so very much for having us. Yeah, so I'm just out here doing the diversity recruitment thing, but I do believe that East Coast Executives, my firm, I do believe that we're the diversity recruitment leader, but that's a concerted group effort, right?
You see, it's in my head. I always see the post and I kind of just put you with it. So yeah.
I'll take it. We'll take it. Look, we've been doing this for a while. So yeah, we want to be the leader, and we believe we position ourselves well to claim that moniker.
Awesome. Well, tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing. Expand on that comment that you just made.
Sure, no problem. So as you had mentioned, Kenneth L. Johnson, friend of Simone Morris. Let's start there, right? But so I founded a company called East Coast Executives, and we brand ourselves as the diversity recruitment leader. Companies come to us when they're looking to add diverse talent to their recruitment pipelines. Because I started my firm in 2001, and we've kind of grown and retracted and grown and retracted and then kind of kept moving forward. We've been able to branch off into some other things, and it's allowed me to get different exposure, right? So I'm also a proud member of the team of the New York Urban League. I'm the diversity recruitment specialist for them. Also host the Digital Career Success Series for the Urban League Jobs Network. That's a platform that the National Urban League has. You had mentioned the Career Seekers Show. We do that in Philly on 106.5 WPPM FM. We brand it as your only source for career and job search information with a focus on diversity. And I also work as the Google Job Readiness Facilitator at the Grow with Google Learning Center in Manhattan. And I'm a Black Enterprise Modern Man and Forbes career coach, and a father and a friend and all of that other stuff as well. So I just try to stay busy and stay in my lane, as you see.
Wow, that is an amazing background. And I just say to the audience, you can see why I have Kenneth up on this show. So I'm going to get right to it, Kenneth, with all that experience and all that talk about career and, just what you do for so many years. What would you say is the secret sauce or your formula for owning your career?
Wow. Formula for owning your career. Okay. You know what? I'm actually prepared to answer this question, actually. This works for me. I definitely think there's three things that go into the recipe, right? I guess a formula could have a recipe, right? So three elements of the formula, right? So I think you have to have motivation and hunger, right? Some people say motivation, some people say hunger, but you have to really want it, right? You have to want your career or want to own your career, right? So I think that's the piece that's really important. But within that, I think you have to be obsessed with a mission that's higher than yourself in your career, right? So yeah, we do this diversity recruitment thing. This is all I do all day. Like I said, but prior to speaking to you, I was on a conversation about adding value with the diversity and inclusion lens, right? But I think in this thing, you have to be obsessed with something that's higher than yourself in this. And for us, there's a huge social responsibility piece to the work we do. I'm not doing this for myself. I really believe I'm doing this for a lot of other people that are just looking for opportunities, looking for an even playing field, right? And I think that's the piece we add. And then I think the third ingredient or the third element of the formula is that you have to have a strategy. You have to have a strategy. You can be as hungry as you want. You can have the social responsibility piece or any type of thing higher than you that you want. But if you don't have a strategy on how to get there and be effective within it, then you'll just keep spinning your wheels. So I think those are the three things, right? And if you can put those three things together over time and be consistent, I honestly believe it'll take you wherever you want to go, Simone.
Awesome. That sounds great. What about action, Kenneth? So you've got the strategy, the overarching mission. You've claimed. My language is claiming it, which I think is essentially what you're saying.
Sure.
So you've got all those things going. Talk to us about how action plays into this, because you've got to take consistent action to implement that strategy that you come up with, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think, just in thinking about this, and this is the mature Kenneth, right? This is the Kenneth that's shifted a little. I think action comes in the form, for me, action comes in the form of not quitting, right? Some days your energy is going to be high and you're going to work and you're not even going to know what time it is. You're going to work until the middle of the night. I have a friend here in Harlem who has a company called Idea Manufacturer. And her name is Gina Ramcharan. And sometimes we look up and it's 9:30, 10 p.m. and we're still in the office. Thank God for her, because she lets me stay and hang out in our workspace with her that long. She has the key. So as long as she stays, I stay. But it doesn't seem like it's that long, right? So I think action is really your commitment to it. You can start off on something and then fall off really quick and go in another direction. But I think the key to action is kind of staying the course. So that's the way I look at it.
Awesome. Well, talk to us about finding the thing that you're obsessed with. How did you find your way to the thing that you're obsessed with and that you committed to stay the course?
Sure. Fortunately, there's a piece of it that found me, right? And I know everyone's not that fortunate, or at least they haven't experienced that yet, right? And I wish that on everyone, because it's been, the clarity that it's provided me has impacted every part of my life. So there's a piece of it that found me. When I was in college at the University of Pittsburgh, I was looking for a job and no one would hire me because I was a student with very limited experience, and I was probably kind of arrogant in the interviews as well. I thought I was probably more special than I was, right? But nonetheless, I found an angle, and that angle was temporary staffing. A temp firm hired me, and they hired me basically on the spot. So I had a check within like 8-9 days. And I went back to campus and I was telling people about this opportunity that was presented to me. And other people started taking jobs with this particular firm, right? And decent jobs, like higher than your normal college student job. And I started thinking to myself, wow, this would be a great thing to do, like to help people get jobs. You'll always be the person that's in demand if you're helping people get careers, right? So I combined that with the fact that I'm from an incredible neighborhood. I'm from a place called Uniontown, Pennsylvania. I'm from Uniontown's East End. So it's a neighborhood. The East End neighborhood is an incredible neighborhood of people, really good people. But I'm from the Pittsburgh area when the steel mills and things of that nature collapsed, right? So a lot of people in my neighborhood didn't have jobs. And I started always thinking to myself, wow, how about if I could find a way to help people, even the people within my neighborhood have jobs? And I'll be completely transparent. My neighborhood is a Black neighborhood, right? So it was all about kind of helping people connect in. And although I haven't really had the opportunity to do that there, it did provide the springboard and the thought process for me to do that on a national level. And whether it was in Philadelphia or here in Harlem, I've always kind of stayed the course and tried to be supportive of one, companies that are looking to add diverse talent to their recruitment pipelines, but also the people within those neighborhoods and communities that are looking for an opportunity.
I think it's such a great story. I love it. I remember you sharing that at the workshop we did in Tarrytown a couple years ago, and I still love to hear that story. It's so inspiring.
Yes, I remember coming out to Westchester.
Yeah.
Wow, love it. You remember that. I appreciate
How how do you advise others to get comfortable with risk? Because you had to bet on yourself, and you still today have to continue to bet on yourself to be an entrepreneur for over 20 years successfully in business. How do you look at risk, and how do you embrace it or develop an appreciation for risk to be able to bet on yourself consistently in your career?
That's an incredible question. Possibly the best question I've ever been asked, right? So I don't have a canned or packaged answer for it, but I will say this. Um, I'm still not necessarily comfortable with risk, right? I'm very comfortable with making a calculated decision around a risk, but I'm not a risk taker. But I am someone who tries to get as much information as possible and then make a decision based on the the level of the level of failure that's associated with the risk, right? And not failure, because I honestly believe like that those are the best learning experiences, right? If you fail. But risk implies that you're going to lose something, and I don't necessarily like to lose stuff. So I take very calculated risks. So I don't describe myself as a risk taker, but I'm a very informed one if I am one at all.
I think that's a great answer, and I'm thinking about it on many levels. But one is my mind went to Vegas and me thinking about losing money, and I'm so proud of myself. This last time was the first time I did not put coin in the slot machine at the airport or at the Mirage. So it's very exciting. That was the first thing I thought of. But then also, back to the risk and the calculation of it, but you've got to be able to say yes. So let me reframe the question then in the form of being comfortable saying yes to opportunities that are going to allow you to grow. How do you
Sure.
look at that, and how do you talk to yourself about saying yes to these different type of opportunities that may be scary as all heck?
All right. So you know what? Great question. I think that for me, once I made a decision that this is the lane for me, right? I'm a recruiter and I do career services around the areas of diversity and inclusion. And typically for me, that's people of color, right? Once I made a decision that that's the platform I want to stand on, then the only other decisions are, if I take you up on this opportunity, is it going to be in line with the things that I'm already doing? Right. So people do come to me and want me to get involved. I've had people within the last week like speak to me about different industries and wanting me to be involved. And I'm like, that's just not my part of the world. So I kind of stay in my lane, and I believe I'm really good at the things that I do. But I think it's over time I've gotten better at it because I've just stayed the course.
Yeah, I love that. It's such it's so clear what you're saying. And some of us stumble to just getting really clear on what it is we want to do and owning that, and then just growing in that lane that you're talking about. It can be a journey to get to that point where you're like, no, this is my lane and this is what I am really good at,
Well,
even though
so,
they're distractors, right?
well, and there's the piece, right? You want to add value. So sometimes, if you step into conversations where you can't add value, all you're doing is talking.
Mm.
And I want to listen too, right? So the only way I can talk and listen is if I'm in a conversation where I can add value, or I'm just going to be a listener
Mm-hmm.
or just a talker. And I rarely want to be just one or the other. I want to add value. So that's the piece for me.
I love that. I love that. So can you, when you were talking, Kenneth, I thought about being a passenger. I thought about myself back in my corporate days where there were times where I just was not clear on what I wanted to do. So I allowed others to call the shots and navigate my career. Hey, you'd be great for this. And I'd be like, oh, well, what an honor. Okay. Even if I didn't love it, I was just so flattered. It's probably ego driven where I was like, oh, great. Off I went on that direction. So it kind of, you know what happens with that. There's a lot of twists and turns. Can you think of in your career a time where you perhaps played the passenger role, where you had your hands off the wheel? And I've asked other guests this, it's avoiding responsibility for your career. Can you think of a moment that that happened to you, and what did you do to overcome that?
All right. So outside of the times like right out of college where, I'm a young African American male at the time, and people wanted me to be a counselor at youth detention centers and things of that nature, right? Those were the jobs that were being offered to me, and that's fine. I think that's important work, right? But it wasn't the work I wanted to do. So then I kind of took hold of my career. I actually ended up leaving a job. They wanted me to be the executive director of it was a family support center program for youth that were adjudicated delinquent. It was in South Jersey. It's called Together Inc. They were in Glassboro, New Jersey. And they asked me to be the director, and I knew that wasn't the direction I wanted my career to go in. I'm like, if I take this role, this is going to be it. This is the path for me. So I ended up turning down the job, and I knew as soon as I turned the job down, I was going to have to leave because they were going to hire somebody to do it, and they wouldn't want me there in any capacity because I would just be good for where they were headed with a new director, right? So literally, I turned the job down and resigned and set out on this journey to be a recruiter. So in Philly, the temporary firms were on Market Street and JFK back then. So pretty much from 27th all the way to like 15th Street. So I made a list of all the recruitment firms that I had heard of, right? So those were the ones that I thought were popular. Probably a list of I think the list was 32 actual temporary staffing firms. And I just started at 27th Street and I started walking. And this was post dates 9/11. So you could walk into a building and introduce yourself to people back then, right? So I walked in, I had an elevator pitch. I just walked from 27th Street and just kept going into offices, right? Had my day runner with like it planned out. I had everything strategized, 30 copies of my resume at least. And I kept going through and I kept getting turned down. I would walk in, hi, my name's Kenneth Johnson. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, interested in an opportunity to work as a member of your team, right? And people kept shooting me down. But when I got to the 14th place, there was this lady there and her name was Joyce Holly. And Joyce and another lady named Melissa Whaley, they were both in the office. I remember their names because they're friends, right? But Joyce told me, hey, your elevator pitch is really good. I admire the fact that you walked in here, but we have a small office and I can't hire you right now. So that was fine, but that was feedback, right? So I got feedback, but each office I took the person's card. And finally, when I got to the 26th place, so I only had like 6 more to go. I was at 15th Street in Philly. Anybody from Philly, it's the building with the clothespin. It's the Center Square building. So they'll know it. Anybody from Philly will know that. But I walk in and I introduce myself and I give my elevator pitch. And it just so happened that I was pitching to the accounts payable person, the payroll person. She was at the front of the office, and the vice president was walking down the hallway and heard my pitch. And her name was Dottie Ackenbrack. And she said to me, she said, "That's a really good pitch. Come into my office for a second, let's talk." And we just had a conversation. And she said, as luck would have it, my VP's here today. And she brought her VP into the office, spoke with him. We clicked. He was from the Bronx. I had spent a lot of time in Harlem. And the next thing I know, I was hired and working that job, managing 250 temporary employees by, I don't know, 3 days after that. So, and that was the start of my career journey. So ever since, so I took control of it, right? I set myself in the driver's seat, and then every other opportunity kind of came from that. Even the lady that I met at number 14, Joyce Holly, a year, maybe 2 years later, she circled back to me and ended up hiring me to work at a firm that she had started with another African-American female named Patricia Troy out in Philly. They started a company called Advanced Staffing, and they hired me, and I worked for them and kind of learned the ropes there, and then went on to a direct hire firm called Urban Recruiters with a gentleman named Bernard Johnson, and he taught me executive search and diversity recruitment.
What an amazing story. And
I was always in the driver's seat. Like, I was always in the driver's seat to a certain extent.
Yeah. And it shows determination and just, I mean, you know, to walk and to just keep hitting different places and believing in yourself. Like, look, I deserve to be here. I mean, it's an amazing story, Kenneth.
Well, you know, like we had spoke about earlier, like that's what I wanted to do. So I was gifted with knowing what it was that I wanted to do. So there was no variation, because you figure I'm walking in staffing firms in a suit and I'm speaking really well as a young Black man. So people were circling back saying, "Hey, we got another opportunity. We don't have an opportunity here in the staffing firm, but we can send you to our client over here that's looking for somebody in the mailroom or somebody to work customer service." And I kept having to turn those opportunities down because I was looking to work internal.
I love that on so many levels, to be able to just know the lane you're in, know what you want to do, and be comfortable with saying, no, that's not what I want to do, because then it's taking you off on a very different path.
It really was, it was incredible. And, you know, I had a daughter at the time. So Ayana was she was a baby, but you have to make decisions based on your family circumstances as well, right? Yeah. So it was really a gamble, because I knew I had to care for and provide for her, but I also needed to feel good about the career path and journey that I was on, just based on what it was that I wanted to do. But everything worked out.
I'd say, look at you today. BE modern man.
Yeah, there you go. Right? Shout out to everybody at Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmonds and the whole team. That BE modern man thing was, as do you know Stephen Hart? Do you know Stephen?
Yeah.
Trailblazer.
Yeah.
Stephen would say that's mission fuel. So he's a BE modern man. Me and him hung out. We were part of that inaugural class. He's a good guy. But yeah, man, that Black Enterprise thing was really helpful in getting me mentally prepared for this type of success, right? Mm-hmm. That acknowledgement of the work that I had been doing out here was crucial in my mindset change to saying, all right, I want to be the best in the world at this.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as we wrap up, can you share with the audience any resources that you have found online or otherwise that have been helpful to you in owning your career?
Yeah, Simone Morris Coaching. Let's just start right there. I know, listen, so I follow you and I watch a lot of the stuff that you do, and you're doing incredible things and giving incredible information. Had the chance to speak to you when you came to the Career Seeker Show extensively about the work that you do, and just you were dropping gems and jewels all over the place for our listeners. So I think the bigger piece to that statement is that there are a ton of resources available just by networking actively and strategically on LinkedIn, right? For us here in Harlem, the Harlem Business Alliance is a great resource. All of your urban leagues, there's 90 plus affiliates around the country, but lock into the stuff that the New York Urban League's doing, the Digital Career Success Series. I'm the host, so this is a shameless plug. But we have great information. We had Minda Hart, Stephanie Humphrey, Melanie Denny, Skyra Thomas. All of these people are great professionals with great information to share, and they've been guests on that platform just in the last 3 months. So I just think there's some great tools and resources from an entrepreneur standpoint, just from a business standpoint. SCORE, that's the American Express platform. Just honestly, look at people. If you can find somebody in your industry that's done it, that you respect, that's the person for you. Go to them and go to them just in a humble spirit and just wanting to listen and learn. But offer something as well to them. It can't always be a take. It has to be a give a lot as well. So, I don't know. There's resources out there for everyone. Everyone reacts to them differently, but there's no shortage of them. Trust me.
Absolutely. Well said. There's so much information, and you have provided so many valuable gems on this show. I knew it would be a great episode, short and sweet and packed with lots of career expertise. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Now, what I appreciate it, I want to stamp this with saying that we're living in some crazy times right now. And I know a lot of people are out here dealing with the coronavirus scare, COVID-19. I just want to share with everyone to be safe, follow the rules and regulations and guidelines set forth by the Center for Disease Control, and just ride this out. It's going to get better. We're going to be back up and back on top. And I just want to encourage everybody to just stay positive and network and do things like this. So thank you very much, Simone. I'm in the house today, and you've given me something to do, so I appreciate it. And if anybody ever wants to connect with me, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or visit the eastcoastexecutives.com website. You'll find all of our information there, and you'll be able to connect through.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's been a great time. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this today.
Likewise. Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.